I'm J.K. Simmons, and this is my last meal.
Every person has exactly two things in common. We all gotta eat and we're all gonna die. Today's guest is an Academy Award-winning actor who you might recognize from Whiplash, Juno, and his several attempts to defame Spider-Man. His newest show, The Westies, is out now on MGM+. But before all that, he was just the fastest damn grill cook at the Bob Evans Farm Sausage on Route 61. J.K. Simmons, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, how are you? I was tied for fastest with my pal Paul Lang.
But you went from busboy at the Bob Evans to grill cook at the Bob Evans to just two dudes getting arrested outside the Bob Evans.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
What happened with that?
We were 15 years old, and there was a curfew in Worthington, Ohio, and Columbus, Ohio. So, of course, we all, from age 13, we would just sneak out at night, just to break a law.
Yeah.
I'd gone on vacation. We'd been on a family vacation. We were working the summer at the Bob Evans. And the day we got back, Paul came over to sleep over at my house, and we're hanging out. And he's telling me there was something very new and exciting at Bob Evans. They switched out the salt shakers or something. There was something I was like, oh, wow, that's fascinating. Let's go. So at like 3 a.m., we walk like 2 miles from my house to the Bob Evans up Route 61, like jumping into a bush anytime a car came because we were illegally on the street. And we're hanging outside Bob Evans, peeking in the windows, and he's showing me some new different thing. And then we're just hanging out, and I see this look come onto Paul's face of like, what, and just as I'm about to turn and see what he's looking at, behind him, I see cop car, like Starsky and Hutch style, pulling in, and cops come out, I kid you not, guns drawn, up against the wall, like get searched. I think one of us had like a tiny little, mini pocket knife, and they were like,
oh man,
like, West Side Story. And they hauled us downtown and then put us in separate rooms.
Oh my God, prisoner's dilemma. They prisoner's dilemma you.
Yeah. And my dad was a very, very kind and gentle man. This was one of the rare exceptions to that persona of his, because they woke him up at 4:30 in the morning to say, drive half an hour to the precinct downtown and pick up your idiot kid. He was not happy.
And that's how the show Oz was created.
That was the beginning of my first brush with law enforcement.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me, man. Have you thought about your last meal before?
Not until you asked me to.
Really?
And thought of my favorite stuff.
Yeah. Well, did anything surprise you about your own thought process? Any memories that you didn't expect to get brought up?
I realized that the family recipes, whether my current immediate family, my parents, those were the real comfort foods in every sense of the word.
How often do you think about death?
Maybe a little bit more as a septuagenarian, which is technically not a word.
What do you mean it's technically not?
Well, I was disappointed to look up in at least my dictionary app, because there's, when you're 80, you're an octogenarian.
Sure, yeah.
When you're 70, I assume you're a septuagenarian.
Are people living so long now that it's just no longer
it's like not even
impressive?
Whatever, 70, 71.
30, yeah.
Big deal. Yeah, I mean, maybe, is it in your dictionary? I don't know.
Did you think about death when you were younger at all, though? Were you that type of existentialist?
Only when I was like near it. I had two near drowning incidents. One as a young kid, and then another as a complete idiot 19-year-old.
Did they get you to reframe any of your idiot 19-year-old behaviors, or no?
No.
Yeah.
No.
It can't.
Just some brief existential angst, and then back to the stupidity.
Right back to it.
Yeah.
JK, you ready to eat?
I am ready to eat.
Let's
yes, please.
JK, for the first course of your final meal on Earth, we have the fat burger, the chips and guac, and then this is something you didn't ask for.
No, I did not.
But I'm wondering if you know what this is.
Oh, would that be the dancing shrimp?
This would. Wait, hold on. Let me. Now, do you recognize it? Look at those shrimp dance.
Yeah.
This is the dancing shrimp, and where's this from?
The DB Dance. I believe that's from the Red Eye Grill on 7th Avenue in New York City.
That is indeed from the Red Eye Grill. This is the chips and guac from the Red Eye Grill. We tried to recreate it exactly to their presentation, which I will say is quite baroque. with all of the vegetables and the homemade potato chips. But this is more for me because I have walked past the Red Eye Grill no more than a dozen times in Manhattan and seen the sign Home of the Dancing Shrimp, and I have never gone in. And so I wanted to have these with you.
We eat there a lot, and I have also never had the dancing shrimp, but here we are.
How have you been inside the Home of the Dancing Shrimp and not gotten the dancing
Well, they do
shrimp?
have actual other fantastic food on the menu.
Listen, we're going to start wherever you want. This is tremendously distracting, though. I need to put this down here, and it can still be seen on camera.
We have a third joining us.
JK, when was the first time you went to the Red Eye Grill in New York?
Moved there in '83. Definitely couldn't afford the Red Eye Grill. Probably not until I was on Broadway.
Is this kind of one of those like splurge spots? Like you kind of finally felt like you made it a little bit and could afford more than the 75-cent slice?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, please, man, dig in. So we have the skinny
skinny
fries.
fries, good.
This is the double medium fat burger, which a medium fat burger is like a third pound patty on a wheat bun with lettuce, tomato, mayonnaise, and cheese.
I got ripped off. I only got a single patty here. It's all right. It's fine. It's
so
fine.
hard to get good fat burger help around here.
It's a fantastic burger.
Wash it down with the diet right.
They don't have this at Fat Burger. You got to. As a matter of fact, I think they're not going to have this anywhere soon. I think they're phasing it out. But please keep making diet rates. It's healthy. It's a healthy diet.
Oh, these were originally only sold in pharmacies marketed to diabetic patients. This is the first, some call it the second diet soda in America.
Are you making this up?
I'm dead serious. I know a weird amount about the history of diet soda.
We never had soda at my house when I was a kid. I don't remember when I started gravitating to it as an adult, but it has no aspartame and no caffeine. It's just sucralose, and it's delicious. I gotta have a skinny fry.
And you're not partaking in the lovely ketchup.
Why would you spoil a perfectly good French fry by dipping it in like sugary stuff that used to be kind of vaguely related to a tomato? Well, I guess we're about to find out, aren't we?
Oh, because it tastes so good. JK, it's one of the few things that engages all five senses of taste. It's salty, it's sweet, it's acidic. It's got umami. They did it.
I mean, I don't know any of those words you just said, but you're
Fair
wrong.
point.
You're just wrong.
Fat Burger, I think this might be the first or maybe the second time that we've had Fat Burger compared to roughly a dozen In-N-Out orders from people.
Yeah. I mean, In-N-Out is great.
Sure.
And it's a fantastic company because they really treat their employees well, and they profit share and all that. And anytime you go to In-N-Out, like, the people helping you are like pleasant and competent, which is not often the case when you go to a fast food joint. So
Very rare thing.
But Fat Burger is my go-to.
The guacamole from Red Eye Grill. Red Eye Grill, their last service ever will be on July 12th in New York. They're closing down for good. They just announced this recently. So unless you can get out there.
Why would you tell me that?
It's your last meal. I want you to go to the grave with the full knowledge of all the things that are happening on Earth. JK, I can't lie to you.
The writing was on the wall because I was going to meet a friend for lunch there recently. Got there at 1 o'clock and they were not open for lunch. I was like, how are you not open for lunch at 56th Street and 7th Avenue in New York City?
Yeah. How do you react to the way that New York has changed so much?
As we've said, I'm a septuagenarian. So everywhere I go, when I go back to Big Fork, Montana, I'm like, well, it ain't like it was in 1970. So yeah, the thing I notice, and because I don't really live in one place a lot, I just keep noticing what's not there anymore. And now I'll be noticing that Red Eye Grill is not there anymore. We used to also go to, my wife and I and the kids would go to Rue 57. A couple blocks over from Red Eye Grill, which closed, I think, just sort of towards the end of the pandemic. They couldn't quite make it through. But hey, life has changed.
Life has changed. That's one of the few certainties that we get. And then sometimes you can also relive a lot of those changes by playing in a 1980s period piece in Hell's Kitchen, New York.
This is true.
In the Westies, you would have been living in Hell's Kitchen while the Westies gang, which is kind of known as like the last vestige of the Irish Mafia, was active. Did you have any Mafia run-ins?
I did live in Hell's Kitchen in the early 80s and did not. I was an actor / waiter.
Sure.
One of my best waiter job was at Joe Allen, which is a classic Theater Row bistro. Can I start on them?
Oh, please eat. I'm so sorry, JK. This is your last meal. Please dig in, eat, talk with your mouth full. I'm sorry, I'm being
There'll be a lot of that.
terrible
I
host.
mean, fully embarrass my children by getting food in my beard. I like having the variety of accoutrement. Yeah, so I would, you'd finish the post-theater shift and be walking home with a pocket full of cash.
Yeah.
Because the tips have been, distributed, and kind of looking over your shoulder to see if any of the Westies are interested in having your pocket full of cash.
You lived in New York for a while before you were ever actually even on Broadway. You're doing a lot of regional theater, really scraping together money. You have this story earlier in your career where you got back from a regional theater gig, you're hanging out at a buddy's place, just spent your last dime on a slice of pizza, contemplating, are you going to try and go back and get your teaching certificate? And then your buddy Gregg leaves you $40. It's, I don't know, it feels like this guardian angel kind of story, not to put too much apocrypha on it. But do you look back at that as maybe like a crossroads in your career?
It was just a gigantic gesture on his part, Gregg Edelman. But I think I was subletting from a guy that Gregg and I have both worked with on a national tour, Doonesbury the Musical, in which Gregg played the title role, and I played the provost and understudied three guys and was the second assistant stage manager.
A lot of hats.
And I think Gregg had come over to hang out at my place and probably brought the beer and the pizza. And and I was just lamenting. I'd come back from a theater job and I'd been pounding the streets, for auditions, but also just trying to get a waiter job, and nobody was hiring. And I was just like flat ass broke, and what am I going to do? And then I don't remember if it was after he left that night or if it was the following morning. I saw that he'd kind of stuck some cash under my my answering machine, the old school answering machine. So to not make a big deal of it. But thank you, Gregg. That was. And I think when I've told this story recently, inflation may have played a part, because I think I've said it was $100, but I think $40 is probably much more accurate.
You're in a movie called Up in the Air, and there's a great line that George Clooney says to your character, which is, how much did they first pay you to give up on your dreams? You said $27,000. Like, the first desk job that you took, those dreams got deferred indefinitely. Were you ever close, amid all the struggle of the regional theater and crashing on sublets and all the hellholes in Hell's Kitchen, were you ever close to just giving it all up?
Well, first of all, that character's dream in Up in the Air, his dreams were culinary.
They were culinary,
as you recall, yeah.
Minored in French pastry.
Yeah. My character flashes a picture of his kids. What am I supposed to tell them or something? And that was, of course, our kids.
Oh, it's
Joe and Olivia. Yeah. Yeah. I was very close that night you were just talking about. With Gregg Edelman and me in Hell's Kitchen. I was like, this is this ain't working out.
Yeah.
And if I'd had any other remotely saleable skill of any kind, other than being a not very good waiter, or digging a ditch or bussing tables or delivering pizza. Come to think of it, I have many, many skills. Really well-rounded human.
Grill cook, you can still do that. I think Bob Evans.
I can. I don't. Sure. I'm a consumer.
May I offer you a dancing shrimp?
Oh yes, I forgot about the dancing shrimp.
Seeing as you've never had these, and the Red Eye Grill is going out of business, so we have the head. Oh, you just need to detach the tail, I think. And the head is maybe decorative, but maybe you can eat part of the head. This is part of it. Now we have three. How did this not work?
It looks like you should just eat it like a corn dog, right?
And maybe you do. Well, it's not too bad. We have a trio of sauces. We have ponzu, spicy mayonnaise, and this is all exactly how they do it at the Red Eye Grill.
And they're closing anyway, but you're damning them with faint praise. It's not too bad. Shrimp?
Red Eye Grill, we hardly knew you. JK, for the second course of your final meal on Earth, we're just calling this the Don Simmons Special.
Oh, man.
These are Don Simmons' famous cheese balls, and then also the Finnish pancake, which this is fresh out of the oven. It is ripping hot. Your sister was kind enough to send us the recipes for both of these. And I will say, sometimes you get a family recipe and you're like, how the hell is this going to turn out? Do these look true to...
They're a little more hemisphere than sphere.
Sure, yeah.
So
You're used to sphere.
Actually balls.
Sure, yeah.
They're sort of
We thought about it. We tried our best.
castrated balls,
yeah.
if I may.
Yeah, gli castrati, the Italians call them.
I'm getting the smell already, so I think the ingredients are there.
What is the context that these cheese balls would have been served in your life?
Well, this would just be an appetizer, dinner party. My parents entertained a lot, had fun people over to
Thank you so much.
gather around the piano singing 18th century madrigals and, being very artistic in the 1960s. So a cheese ball, I'm picking up a fork, but, a cheese ball.
I didn't know if you didn't want to get...
Again, I'm saying would look quite a bit like this.
Maybe that's what we got to do, put little toothpicks in them.
Mm-hmm. They probably did use toothpick. Oh, yeah, man, that's it.
It's right there. I think there's only 3 ingredients in these. I think it's cheese, flour, and salt.
Yeah.
Did you see your parents entertaining with these big groups of artistic people and think that is what I want to surround my own life with? No, you rebelled against them.
No, I just remember thinking as kids, and of course we would be sent to bed, but who's going to go to sleep with people having fun downstairs? So the classic, peeking between the posts and the banister, thinking what could possibly be so funny down there? Nobody's making faces. Like the adult world was just such a mystery. Yeah. And how could any kid ever turn into one of those adults downstairs? Just seemed like a different species.
Did you ever have a moment where you felt like you were turning into that species?
No, not yet.
Not yet. You still got time. You're as a fake septuagenarian.
Right. Maybe when I'm an octogenarian,
yeah.
We'll feel like a grown-up.
Can I slice this Finnish pancake? This is another dad specialty.
I believe my dad got that recipe from my Aunt Riva.
Are either of them Finnish?
Neither of them is remotely Finnish. We do have a little Norski in our blood, but more Scots-Irish and Welsh and.
Wow.
Yeah, that was it. It looks kind of like a quiche. He would do it in a square pan or a rectangular pan.
I would call this almost like a Dutch baby, but I guess this would be a Finnish baby. We have a whole slew of condiments. If you'd like any butter, honey, there's a little bit of honey in the batter, cinnamon, sugar, and then a bit of jam right here.
Where's the maple syrup, man?
That's right. Can we get some maple syrup out here? I hear executive producer Annalise rustling around for hell yeah, Annalise, thank you.
All right. Actual maple syrup.
That is real maple. Listen. We save money by skimping out on burger patties, and we spend it on the real maple syrup.
Right, you gotta get a little bit of the edge.
I have no idea what this is going to taste like.
You ever been to Finland?
No. They're the happiest country on earth. Pretty close?
Mm-hmm. It's not quite the rush of nostalgia as the cheese biscuit, but
sure.
Really good.
So your dad had the music chair at the University of Montana, and he also was the head of several organizations regarding music and education that were so many words long. You got your degree from the University of Montana in classical music composition and conducting, and somehow Damien Chazelle didn't know any of that when he cast you for Whiplash.
Right.
That's insane.
That was Jason Reitman, by the way, who was producing that with Helen Esterbrook. They suggested me as a possibility to Damien, and this was before the short film. Yeah. They said, well, we'll have you meet with Damien and have lunch, and so we set up a lunch, and I saw Damien, who literally looked like he was 18 years old, We sat down and did the usual, oh, you're so great. And then the first thing he said, really, out of his mouth after the pleasantries was, I want to take the onus off you. Don't be intimidated by the musical aspects of this. We'll have a technical advisor. We can have a body double for a lot of the really conducting shots, And I'm kind of staring blankly at him, and he finishes his little cautionary tale, and I go, did Reitman not tell you that, am I being punked here? I was like, I wanted to be Leonard Bernstein when I have a degree in conducting, composition, voice. This was to do the short film, so I was going to learn this score. And if you have guys that can play, I will be conducting them. I'm not going to be up there, waving my arms. And he was obviously, there was a sense of kismet.
Yeah. Did your dad ever get to see you play Terrence Fletcher?
No.
Never. He passed away, would have been right when you were filming this short film then, yeah?
My folks knew about it and knew that I was excited about it.
Yeah.
But, they knew that I was excited about the 75 other jobs before that nobody ever saw.
Of course.
But my siblings, my sister and brother both pointed out that my ictus, which is where the beat actually happens, was exactly my father's, where that for some reason that middle finger kind of drops down a little bit, and that's like the point of the baton. If you had, and obviously some conductors use a baton and some don't. And he did both, actually. I still have boxes of his batons and then my baton. I had one baton, and this is like Harry Potter going down Diagon Alley to the, to get your wand, to have an actual baton that somebody hand makes on a lathe or whatever, was like somehow a big rite of passage for me when I was 19 years old in college.
Yeah. Did you think that anyone was going to watch Whiplash? I mean, you mentioned the 75 other projects that you'd been excited about similarly.
I had kind of learned not to concern myself with that.
As a more of a defense mechanism against getting hurt, or as you're just there to serve the art and do the job?
Yeah, I guess some of both. I mean, I'd done several little indie films that I thought were good and, were seen by dozens of people. And, and I mean, obviously, Whiplash was a work of genius from the very beginning. So it was extraordinary on the page. I mean, they speak for themselves. It was an absolute gift from on high to be a part of. Just reminded me of Brahms when I went through a very fertile composer stage in college, and I had been reading about Brahms, who was a favorite of mine. Brahms had said in some interviews that he doesn't create, that he is a conduit from God.
Yeah.
The music comes from God through Brahms, through his pen, onto the page. And there were times during that fertile period of mine where I did feel like something else was happening here. And I literally wrote with it was so pretentious, I'm like 20 years old, 19 years old, wrote with a music, nib on my ink pen, and there was a brief fertile period there where that, the muse, something, Brahms, somebody was with me, helping me do all that stuff that nobody will ever hear outside of the University of Montana.
Yeah, but, nobody will ever hear outside of that, but they saw you portray a character that was deeply affected by music in Whiplash, and I firmly believe that those experiences really, really, really add up, and to create such a wonderful work of art. Whiplash is one of my favorite movies because it's one of the only movies that's ever made me feel physically sick. I watched the scene where Miles wakes up late, it was alarm, and I went, oh no, because I've had that exact feeling with super demanding chefs, with super demanding coaches, so many of these people, and your particular portrayal, not just you being terrifying, it's not you as a Nazi prison warden, you know what I mean, not that kind of terrifying, but terrifying in the unique way of somebody who has true belief in the art that they're doing.
Right.
And that's the thing that came through for me. He believed that he was speaking for these gods of art. At least that's what I thought it was. And I know your dad said something similar about conducting, right? That he was simply there in service of the person who wrote it. And I think that fertile period carried through on Whiplash, man.
I inherited that from my parents.
Yeah.
My mom sang in my dad's choirs, and they met actually doing a musical in college. It's the same thing with an actor, when you're a musician, when you're a singer, when you're an instrumentalist or a conductor. I mean, you are I don't think of an actor as a creative artist. I think of an actor as a conduit, right? Whether it's Shakespeare or Damien Chazelle or Jason Reitman or Arthur Miller, whatever, they created it, and it's our job to lift it off the page. Eamon Sweeney, my character in The Westies, not the cuddliest guy around, right? There's a body count on the show, spoiler alert. But in many ways, like, my most terrifying character was a guy that just yells at musicians.
The question coming out of Whiplash that I've never been able to square in my mind is, are happiness and greatness compatible? Do you think they are?
I think it's pretty rare. And, historically, I mean, again, going back to, classical music and so many of the great composers that I adored and wanted to emulate, but, Beethoven, an obvious example, a lot of them were, tortured souls. Great pain can yield great creativity and great art. I'd like to, I don't want to say skip the pain part. You don't want to...
I think sometimes people can indulge in it.
Right. Those are the two tendencies, like skirt around it or wallow in it. Mm-hmm. But the reality is Scott Kahn is a pal who nobody knows, by the way, is a playwright. And the title of one of his plays, I think the first one I saw, a little black box theater in L.A., is called, it's like sort of a one sentence, this is how you have to live life. No way around but through. Mm-hmm. That's the reality. I mean, you can avoid, and we do, and I know I do, to my detriment and to the detriment of those around me sometimes. But I don't want to say always. Usually best to just face it.
You ready to go on to course number 3?
Yeah, I'll take that home, right?
Take it. We have to-go boxes.
Good.
Yeah. JK, for the third course of your final meal, we have Wife Michelle's special blackened tilapia with broccoli and corn and roasted sweet potato, subbed for the mashed potatoes. We got Randall's special right here. And then we have the coronation chicken. This is the Schumacher family conflagration of flavors over here.
This is fantastic. I'm going to start with what's hot.
Start with what's hot.
Here. Yeah, this is just something she just did one day many moons ago, I think when the kids were little.
Blackened fish was popular because of one chef, Paul Prudhomme, in the 70s. You ever watch any Paul Prudhomme?
Not a big chef show watcher. Sure. My daughter loves the shows. But yeah, Paul Prudhomme he was a big national figure at the time. Do
you remember the first time that Michelle cooked for you?
I don't think I do remember the first time. But I mean, we probably did it a fair amount. We met on a national tour. Mm. And then, of course, we were staying at hotels and, eating out all the time.
Yeah.
But then,
that's when she was playing Tiger Lily and you were playing
She was
Hook.
Tiger Lily and I was Hook.
Can you look at this picture and tell me what she found so tremendously attractive about this man right here?
I mean, it's obvious, isn't it?
They say the bigger that hat.
There's an equally famous portrait. Oh, the makeup was fantastic.
God, it really was.
Of the two of us, Tiger Lily and Captain Hook, clearly enemies, but clearly in a very non-enemy pose with her perched on my lap and us.
Keep your enemies closer, I think they say.
Yeah.
I think the kids call it enemies to lovers. Do you read a lot of smut?
Sounds like a magazine in a Woody Allen movie.
I think it reads like one, too.
No, I'm not familiar with smut.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I think you could probably make a solid living doing some audiobooks on it. We have, at this table, represented pretty much every single person in You Can't Run Forever. Mm-hmm. With the producer, with Randall, with the director, Michelle, the star. We were just missing your two children as a co-star and composer.
Right.
That was just a true family affair.
They do cook, by the way. The kids cook pretty well.
You have no of your children's dishes represented on your last meal.
Sorry. But yes, no, that's great. That was a fantastic project for all of us to be together on, and Michelle being the impetus because she was, the creator. And Randall was a one-man band as the producer, and Olivia had a really nice supporting part, and Joe did the entire score. And I was the antagonist in that one.
Yeah, you were a crazed serial killer running around in the Montana woods with your whole family just kind of hanging out watching and directing and composing. And It sounds like just a really fun summer. You know what I mean? Like, like in all earnestness, like if that is all of your family's passions, there's almost something delightfully school project about it, in a way of like, let's just go up to the woods. Dad's going to be the crazy serial killer. You know him. And then just run around. Did it feel like that? Just like the whole family having fun?
It did. Yeah, it absolutely did feel like that. It was not like a fun summer project. It ended up being originally scheduled as a September and then pushed into, I think, as, every film ever, gets pushed a little bit. So by the time we were shooting all those night exteriors in the woods, it was coming on winter in Montana at 4,500 feet elevation. So it was a little brisk. Yeah. So we did fight that, and the occasional bear, this and that. But it was a fantastic time to be doing that together. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
I'm going to embarrass my kids by having some corn on the cob now.
I'm in.
They cut it off the cob.
I can cut it off here.
No.
Sure?
I eat it on the cob.
Oh, the kids cut it off.
My dad was a farm boy from Illinois, and you eat it on the cob.
There's no better food.
And you don't need to mess with it.
Should we dig into Randall's special?
Yes, please.
We got very detailed recipe from Randall. Cipollini, onions, zucchini, potatoes, carrots, chicken, then coming together for a hash. And this is the kicker, deglazed with Grand Marnier.
Just a little.
Just a little.
Yeah, this is just something that one of those days you look in the pantry and the fridge and you go, well, I got some carrots, I got some corn, I got some cipollini onions. Those are fun, Yeah. Has to be cipollini onions, by the way. It can't be like any other onion.
No. Because you got to be able to eat the whole onion, and I literally keep a bag of frozen cipollini onions in my freezer at all times, just for this. I got to re-up on my cipollinis out there. How did your life and career ambitions change when you met Michelle, or did they? I know, just speaking for myself, I wouldn't have had any sort of ambitions. I would have been happy being just kind of a bum cooking and writing around until I met my wife, who was the first person that told me, like, hey, I believe in you and you can do these things. And not only that, I think you probably deserve these things. And I was like, that's a crazy thing for someone to tell me. But I really attribute so much of my happiness to her in that way. Did you experience that at all?
Well, I differently. I mean, I certainly attribute much of my happiness to her.
Sure, yeah.
I'll tell my 20-something children that this is the limit. I was 36 and she was 24 when we met. So, but being a dude and being a dipshit and having lived my whole life, single, sort of serial monogamy, I was, 36 going on 19.
And you met her doing what play?
We met her doing, Peter Pan. Yes, there is a syndrome. Yeah,
Hey, at least you weren't doing Oedipus Rex, am I right?
No.
I'll take that. I'll take the high five back. I'll take the high five back. I'm sorry.
No.
You were saying before I started talking about your lovely mother whose cheesecake we're about to eat.
There were bumps in the road, that some of which I stuck there because of the whole Peter Pan thing. Yeah, I mean, frankly, I just didn't like. I'm in my late 30s. It's like, oh my God, am I ready to be a grown up? She was loving and kind enough to hang in there. More than hang in there, to be willing to be a partner.
I think you must have also brought something very valuable to her life.
I mean, I guess there must be something.
Coronation chicken. This is like a 1950s British recipe to celebrate Queen Elizabeth. And this is special number 2 of Michelle.
First of all, when we love going to London for work and or play. And one of the things that she really enjoys, she's a tea drinker. We love going to afternoon tea, which isn't something we rarely do. I mean, obviously you can do it other places besides London, but kind of nobody does it better.
Yeah, right? You're supposed to do it there, yeah.
Yeah.
We did base this off of your wife's recipe, which is based off of the Fortnum and Mason recipe, and it is tremendously time intensive in terms of like poaching the chicken and all that. So hopefully we've done her justice on this.
What is this little piece of greenery you've
Oh my god, that must have fallen out of the plants back there. I'm so
bolted
sorry.
on?
That's tremendous.
Come on.
That's tremendously embarrassing. What kind of restaurant are we?
Golden raisins?
Golden sultanas, they call them, the Brits.
Okay.
You did a play called Birds of Paradise that talks about the idea of the struggle being the best part in a way.
Yes. It's so hard to explain without it sounding dumb. It's a play within a play within a play of the seagull,
Okay.
basically. John Cunningham played my older brother, the Trigorin character from the seagull, who in this case was a successful actor, an actor who'd hit the big time, who was from this small island community on the eastern seaboard, and we're the community theater, and he's coming back to direct this play written by, I don't remember any of the character names ever, Todd Graff, who was, Constantine, the young guy, and then there's the Nina character, I'm the seagull. I was kind of a compilation of characters who played his younger brother, and he's counseling this young, passionate, talented, like really brilliant kid who's written this deep, tortured, painful piece of musical theater, and peasants here don't understand my genius, and I can't wait to get to New York and be in the big time with you, and and he gives this beautiful speech about how this struggle that you have here is the sweetest part. That you're doing this in your community with your family and friends because you love it, not for any other reason. You're not doing it for money, you're not doing it for fame. You're doing it because there's something in here that must come out, and it's not going to. This is the sweetest part, and I hearken back to that sometimes because there's a truth there, and no matter how much good fortune and success we have in whatever the endeavor is, when you first fell in love with cooking, you were just doing it naively.
100%.
You're doing it naively because it brings you joy.
Yeah.
And hopefully in our careers, in any of our careers, to hearken back to that and still find that in our work.
Yeah.
Because if not, we're just slogging away.
You look like the most insane Diet Right ad right now. Like the Dos Equis most interesting man in the world, but for Diet Right. And they're like, guys, he's saying a lot of really depressing shit. I don't think we want this associated with Diet Right. Ready to go to the last course?
I did a commercial, a demo, a series of spots that were very funny that nobody ever saw years ago for a not to be named company a regional company in the southern United States. Mm-hmm. And I was the wacky spokesman. And this is like late 90s, right? And we did these very silly spots, very funny, very clever. Well, and then somebody with the company was watching the first cuts of the spot, and they went, "Are you kidding me? That's the Nazi from Oz. He can't be our guy. He's the Nazi on Oz." And everybody went, "Oh, yeah, no, we can't, no."
JK, for the final course of your final meal on Earth, we have Pat's cheesecake, and then we have the Toll House cookies with slightly less flour than they would normally be baked with, and this is what came out.
When we were living in Michigan, there was a friend of my mom's that had her secret cheesecake recipe. And other people would say, "Can I have your recipe?" And she would go, No, you cannot. Yeah. I will be the person in this community to whom people come for cheesecake. But then when we were moving to Ohio, my mom was like, "Can I have it now?" And she was like, "I'll send it to you when you move to Ohio."
Give me the address to know that it's real, or at least she would commit to the bit to driving all the way to Ohio. Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah. Oh. So this is my mom's recipe, and I don't know if she made any little adjustments over the years, but as a kid I was like, wait a minute, I'm eating sour cream and it's good?
So the top
That's
is
weird.
95% sour cream, little bit of sugar. Bake the sour cream real hot and fast for like a couple minutes, and it sets it into a texture that I've never had before. It's like really a cool recipe that
Right.
we're all geeked on.
All right.
This is for real.
That's the stuff. And the graham cracker crust.
This isn't a New York cheesecake. This is a picture perfect mom cheesecake.
Right.
Would you recommend winning an Oscar and then going on stage without a speech prepared? Because it worked out phenomenally well for you.
That whole, awards season, which I didn't know was a thing until then. The very first one was the Palm Springs Film Festival. Still has cookie time.
Please.
And Jason Reitman introduced me. And when we got there, drove out to Palm Springs, Michelle and I, and we're sitting at a table with Jason and Helen Estabrook. And so Jason says, do you have your speech ready? And I went, no. And he goes, you didn't prepare a speech? And I go, no.
You're the writer. You're supposed to write the speech.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He goes, wow, I really feel like you maybe should do that. And I went up there and, the big spotlight, and it's just this giant tent with 1,000 people sitting at tables. And I went, thank you, Jason, and when we were just sitting there 20 minutes ago, Jason asked me if I had written a speech, and I said, no, I'm just going to speak off the cuff. And he said, I don't think that's a good idea. And I now realize he was absolutely right. And then I just went for like 30 seconds and went, thanks for the trophy and, bye-bye. What I did do the rest of that award season, I mean, it sounds so arrogant, but that was the reality of what everybody was telling me. I had the opposite experience 3 years ago when I was nominated for being the Ricardos. Mm-hmm. And I was like, everybody knows it's not going to be me. Like, it's going to be Troy Kotzer. Mm. So I'm just, I'm going to go kick back and just be, one of the guys. And, I had a theme in mind for, like at the SAG Awards, kind of what we were talking about earlier. We're all supporting actors. Mm. You can be Brad Pitt. As an actor, we are supporting the work, the writer. We are all supporting. So that was the theme of my speech for that. And all I knew was that as the end of the rainbow with the Oscars, I just knew that I wanted to talk about what's most important to most of us, I think, to me, was family, and started talking about Michelle, which led me to talking about our kids who were up in the balcony, and expressing my love and gratitude for her, and then talking about the kids, and then saying that they are who they are because they're a reflection of their mother. And then I just, speaking of that, call your mom, and then that's what became kind of a meme for a while, and actually a very, like, truly meaningful. There were, I heard stories, some directly, about like families who reconciled because some 60-year-old bald white guy said, call your mom on TV, and they did.
Yeah, the Nazi from Oz said,
your dad.
Call your mom. Yeah. And they did. I kind of think it's one of those things where if you have true belief, I think that is the muse that allows those beautiful words to tumble out. Because it wasn't just call your mom, call your dad. It was don't text, don't email. And then I believe the phrase was listen to them for as long as they're willing to keep talking, which to me that...
As long as they want to talk to you.
As long as they want to talk to you.
I actually remember
But I mean, that felt like such a specific, meaningful thing to you. Did you have any times in mind with your own parents that you were thinking about that?
There was a general feeling at that time, as life progresses, if it progresses, there often is a phase of, some level of role reversal, right? Where older people need to be taken care of, continue to be invested in life, and older people have wisdom and have a lot to say, and sometimes that tries the patience of the young who are not long on wisdom.
You do some wonderful work with your brother, something called the UBU Foundation. Tell me about how you got started in that.
Yeah, my brother David has been a real Renaissance man, teaching, singing, composing, songwriting, acting. But the UBU project grew out of his suicide attempt and his desire to help empowering kids through songwriting. He would do these week-long residencies, and he would be Mr. David, and go in there with his guitar and just break down the elements of songwriting and get kids to talk about, what's on your mind, and what's something that makes you happy, and what's something that makes you sad, and all that, and anywhere from like second graders to high school kids. Yeah, and Michelle and I were just supporters from the outside, with funding and some connections here and there. But it was a great project for a long time, and had a significant impact.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at your entire last meal as a whole. Like, almost every dish has a family member's name in front of it. It seems like you have such close connections with all of your loved ones, and that is something that you hold to be so much more dear than any amount of success, whether it's artistic, monetary, career, whatever. And your brother told a story in an interview where after his suicide attempt, you called him and just talked about Tigers baseball for an hour. And he said...
And he was like, why are you talking about... Shut up with the baseball.
No, but he said the opposite, that just having your voice there rewired his synapses in a way that I think people really take for granted, is just having that amount of connection, and it doesn't have to be about anything serious. It's just knowing that somebody's there. And I think you've been there for a lot of people, and you have a lot of people there for you, and it shows in this meal.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And even as a septuagenarian, I feel like I have a lot to learn and a lot of work to do. So I'm going to keep working and learning, I hope.
We ask everybody on the show, what do you think happens when you die?
I don't know, and I don't have specificity about what is next, but I have a great amount of hope that there is something next that is mysterious. And my second true near-death experience, I was 19 years old. My old friend Brad Kenning, college pal, had two friends from Great Falls, Montana, visiting. The four of us went out to the river to jump off a railroad trestle and just be young and stupid and have fun. Dove in. Fortunately, none of us hit the bottom, because we didn't know until the first guy went. And just as I get to this kind of little island kind of in the middle of the river, the last kid behind me who I just met, we all hear, help, and you go, and then I turn around like immediately, this is real. With zero training and zero, like literally zero thought, just instinct. And I'm smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, and I don't know, I've never trained about how to run till I can't run anymore. The water's dive, swim, get to this guy, and I'm gassed. I'm done. And I start to pull him up, and there's like this whirlpool just sucking straight down, and he has this look of beatific calm. He looks at me and he's like, I'm saved, and then it's like two hands grabbing both of our ankles, just pulling us straight down in this eddy, and then the panic. I see the panic on his face, and then he's doing the classic drowning man, all over me. And we go down. I fight back up, down, fight back up, go down for the proverbial third time. And this moment, that same moment that he had, but in a different way, this moment of beatific calm came over me. And I thought, and the thought was like reading a sentence in a book. And my thought was, I remember it exactly. My thought was, I'm going to die now. This is going to be really interesting. And then adrenaline and, miraculously came up, and, we fought our way down the river, and I, lose hold of him, and, we end up, with the help of the other two guys, running along the shore, and a log jam that I was able to grab onto, He was saved, and, it all had that ending. But I was in complete acceptance and just like curious.
Yeah.
It's not a philosophy I'm necessarily espousing. It's just a moment I had that was profound.
You ready to get in the lightning round?
Ooh, yes.
Yes,
I am.
Who's the one person, dead or alive, you'd want to share your actual last meal with?
My wife.
What song do you want to be played at your funeral?
Whiplash.
Hell yeah. Who's on your Mount Rushmore of Ohio State football players?
Archie Griffin, the only two-time Heisman Trophy winner.
And the only one on the Mount Rushmore to congratulate you on Whiplash?
Yes, with a signed hat.
Signed hat. Yeah.
I mean, Hopalong Cassidy. I'm going to go old school. Randy Gradishar. And this is just a novelty pick. Other J.K. Dobbins. Yeah, who the Lang brothers called Other J.K. Yeah.
Who's your dream eulogizer at your funeral?
My kids, because they would be hilarious.
Who got more beat up during the filming of Whiplash, you or Miles Teller?
I think the whole slapping sequence, which was super fun, may have begun a buildup of adrenaline and testosterone within young Miles Teller. Because when we had the scene where I'm berating him and I turn my back and walk away and he like jumps over the drum kit and tackles me to the stage like a moron, I used to always be like, stunt double, get out of here, So he just tackled me like full middle linebacker tackle on a hardwood floor, and I cracked 2 ribs. It was survivable, but it was, I was already old. Dude, I was old.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're spry.
Yeah.
According to Dude Law, you'd either get to kick him in the nuts once or hit him with a phone book, and you get to choose. I believe in that very strongly. Which character is scariest?
You hit him in the nuts with a phone book?
No, it's either you misheard the statute. You either get to kick him in the nuts or you get to hit him in the face with a phone book.
So first you kick him in the nuts, then you hit him with the phone book.
So it's going to be an or situation. It's like an either or. It's like on a prefix menu. It's like or. I think for like a $10 supplement, you can do both.
Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Which character is scariest to you? Dr. Fletcher from Whiplash, Nolan from Invincible, or J. Jonah Jameson from Spider-Man?
J. Jonah Jameson's all bark. I mean, I guess, what with the superpowers and the killing and stuff, I guess it would have to be Nolan. I mean, psychologically terrifying would be Fletcher, so it depends on, like we were talking earlier, which fear is your more intense fear.
Can you humor me and say, were you rushing or were you dragging as some of your other iconic characters? Talking Tenzin from The Legend of Korra.
I have to channel that. That was a while ago. Were you rushing or were you dragging? I don't know if that was a decent Tenzin.
No, that was good,
not.
But it just kind of made me think, like, what if Dr. Fletcher's like a kind of wise Gandalf character? You know what I mean? That would have been just a very different movie.
Yeah.
Kids learn how to play jazz. Klaus from Klaus?
I don't remember.
I think the next one would be easy. If you want to skip that one, we can go to the yellow M&M.
Were you rushing or were you dragging?
That's awesome. Thank you for doing it. That ripped so hard, dude. Finally, JK, are you happy?
Yeah.
You seem happy, man. I think you've achieved happiness and greatness.
I'll take the first one, a million times over the second one.
Fair point. If you want to look to that camera right there and deliver your last words.
My last words? Ow.
God, he's good. J.K. Simmons, everybody. Give it up for him. Bro, truly, this was such an awesome experience, man. Thank you so much. Thank you to your entire family and your hagiographer sister for providing all these wonderful recipes.
And my sister is the only one who knows. None of the Randall and Michelle and my parents, wherever they may be, were unaware of these preparations.
Make sure you check out JK starring in The Westies on MGM+. You can subscribe directly from Prime Video. You got anything else going on?
A movie called The Brink of War that's a 1986 story about the Reagan-Gorbachev summit. Mm-hmm. And then a little part in a beautiful movie with Brad Pitt that's out in September called The Heart of the Beast.
And that's Fight Club 2.
David Ayer film. Fight Club 2.
Fight Club 2.
I kick Brad's butt.
Hell yeah. Hungry for more? Catch up on every Last Bite with the Last Meals playlist at lastmeals.com.